The crystal glass shattered against the floor, and the sound echoed through the quiet hall like a gunshot. Everyone looked at her. Clara Duarte froze in place, holding an empty tray, her face burning with shame, while the manager gripped her wrist too tightly for it to be just an accident. "Do you think you can defy me?" He hissed through his teeth, smiling at the clients as if nothing was happening. The Bellagio Prime restaurant was renowned for its elegance. Gilded chandeliers, live piano, politicians, and businessmen at the most expensive tables in the city. Here, waiters didn't have their own opinions, they just served. But Clara had seen something she couldn't ignore. A few minutes earlier, she had delivered the bill to table number 8, to a federal judge known for his tough stance against corruption. The amount was almost 500 reais higher than the actual consumption. She knew the figures because she always checked them twice. And when she returned to the system, she saw the changes logged under the manager's name, Roberto Vasquez. She thought about ignoring it, pretending it wasn't her business. She needed this job to pay for her mother's physical therapy sessions, who had lost mobility after a stroke. But then she remembered the phrase her mother repeated before the illness. Honesty is not up for discussion. Clara went back to Roberto. The bill for table 18 was altered. "It's wrong." He didn't even blink. "No, it's correct." And no, they didn't order the reserve wine or the premium dessert. Roberto tilted his head, eyeing her like a defective item. "You're new here. You don't understand how things work yet. I understand that this is theft." That's when he grabbed her wrist, and now, in the middle of the hall, in front of the clients who were sneaking glances, he squeezed harder and harder. "You don't know who you're messing with," he muttered. "Let's talk in the back room." He started pulling her toward the corridor without cameras, behind the wine cellar. Clara tried to dig her heels into the polished marble, but her shoes slipped. The pianist kept playing. No one intervened until a low, restrained voice cut through the air. "Let her go." It wasn't loud, not a shout, but the entire restaurant froze. Roberto released Clara's wrist as if burned. She turned and saw the man at that table. Dark suit impeccable, grey at the temples, posture straight as a blade. He wasn't an ordinary client, the silence around him said it all. "Mr. Montenegro," Roberto swallowed. "This is just a misunderstanding with an employee." "I heard," the man replied. "And I saw." He stood up calmly, each step seeming measured. Clara felt something strange. It wasn't fear, it was the sense that the balance of power in the room had shifted. The bill for table 18, the man continued, was changed at 21.47. Reserve wine and premium dessert added. "Correct." Roberto paled. "Sir, I." The question was simple. Clara noticed the discreet cameras on the ceiling. They had always been there, but curiously never pointed toward the corridor behind the wine cellar. It was an administrative error. Roberto tried to regain composure. The man turned to Clara. "Your name?" "Clara Duarte." He nodded slowly. "For today, you're free, Clara. Go home." She opened her mouth to explain, but 2 men in suits appeared unobtrusively near the bar. Not the restaurant security. Roberto tried to smile. "Mr. Montenegro, we don't need to involve." Roberto was interrupted with dangerous ease. "Bellagio Prime belongs to me." The silence became heavy as concrete. "I won't tolerate thieves under my roof." Clara felt for a second like she couldn't breathe. Montenegro, a name that appeared in newspapers always in whispers. Entrepreneur, investor, strategist. Some said his influence extended beyond boardrooms into less visible territories. Roberto started sweating. "I can explain." "You'll explain everything," Montenegro said, making a barely noticeable gesture to the guards. "In the office." When they took Roberto away, Montenegro turned his gaze to Clara. "You knew you could lose your job." She took a deep breath. "I knew. And I said it anyway." He regarded her as if appraising a rare item. "Interesting." Clara left the restaurant 10 minutes later, still shaking. She didn't notice the black car parked across the street. She didn't see someone inside make a call. She walked away alone. In the office on the top floor, Montenegro reviewed the hall recordings. "Rewind," he requested. On the screen, Clara appeared confronting Roberto for the first time, away from the public. Her nervousness was evident, but her voice remained firm. "She didn't know I was in the private room. noted his advisor, Enrique Salazar, arms crossed. Do you think she's sincere? Montenegro paused the video right at the moment Clara said, I understand that this is theft. Either very brave, or very naive, or very dangerous, added Enrique. Montenegro didn't respond. Instead, he said, I want to know everything. Address, history, family, debts. Find out if someone sent her. Enrique raised an eyebrow. Do you think she could be a piece in someone's game against you? I don't believe in coincidences. That same evening, Clara arrived at the small apartment in the eastern part of the city. Her mother was in the adapted recliner, TV on low volume. Clara knelt beside her and took her hand. I think I got fired today, she whispered. Her mother couldn't respond, but her eyes moistened slightly. Clara's phone vibrated. Unknown number. Report tomorrow at 1400 hours to Bellagio Prime to resolve administrative matters. Salazar. She closed her eyes. There it was, the end of the road. She had no idea this message was just the beginning of something much bigger. She barely slept. At 6 in the morning, Clara was already sitting at the tiny kitchen table, staring at a cup of cold coffee, with her mother's medical bills spread out next to the phone. Home physiotherapy, imported medications, adult diapers. The total sum was a constant reminder that courage doesn't pay the bills. At 13:40, she stood in front of Bellagio Prime. By day, the restaurant looked less imposing without the golden lights and live piano. Just concrete, glass, and silence. The guard at the door recognized her. Mr. Salazar is waiting. They didn't take her to the main hall. They went up in the service elevator to the top floor, where Clara had never been. The office was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Books arranged by color, modern art on the walls, absolute silence. Enrique Salazar stood by the desk. Miss Duarte, he said formally. Sit. She obeyed. Montenegro entered a few seconds later, adjusting his watch on his wrist. In daylight, he seemed even more imposing. Sleep well? He asked. Taken aback, she said, more or less, I suppose. He sat across from her and opened a thin folder. You've worked here 4 months. Before that, 2 temporary jobs. Studied accounting for 2 years and dropped out after your mother's stroke. Her stomach tightened. Does this matter? Everything matters. Enrique placed a tablet on the table. On it, footage from last night's recording. Did you know you were being recorded? Montenegro asked. No. And I still confronted the manager. Yes. He tilted his head slightly. You understand that what Roberto was doing wasn't just dishonest. It was part of something bigger. Clara frowned. Bigger in what sense? Enrique touched the screen and opened a financial report for the last 8 months. Over 2 million had been siphoned off through small changes in bills, amounts that influential clients rarely disputed. Clara felt her heart beat faster. 2 million. And it wasn't just Roberto. Montenegro interlaced his fingers on the desk. He was answering to someone. The silence stretched. I only saw what was in front of me, Clara said. I didn't know it was on that scale. But you suspected. She hesitated. Yes. Montenegro stood and approached the window. The person financing this is called Alva Bustos. Real estate investor. Longtime rival. Enrique added, he used Bellagio to create a history of violations, intending to report the restaurant for tax fraud, get the license suspended, and then buy the building at a bargain price. Clara absorbed every word. So Roberto was a pawn. Yes, Montenegro replied. He looked at her again. You destabilized the action plan ahead of time. She felt the weight of the information crashing down on her shoulders. I just didn't want to cheat a client. Sometimes, Montenegro said calmly, one moral decision unleashes a corporate war. Clara took a deep breath. Then why am I here? Enrique exchanged a quick glance with Montenegro. Because we need to know if you're just an honest waitress or if someone sent you. The question hung in the air. Clara felt a sting of indignation. Are you saying I'm a spy? I'm saying coincidences don't exist, Montenegro replied. She stood up slowly. If you think I'm involved, you can call the police. Enrique watched her reaction closely. Montenegro remained still. Sit. The authority in his voice wasn't aggressive, but absolute. Clara sat again. "We've already checked you," he continued. "Real medical debts, clean record, no connections to Bustos or his people." He closed the folder. "You are exactly what you seem. Is that good or bad?" Clara asked. For the first time, a faint smile appeared on his face. "Depends on the perspective." Enrique approached a side panel and turned on another video. In the footage, Roberto secretly met with a man in a light suit in an underground parking lot. "Bustos," Enrique explained. "Roberto still thinks is safe," Montenegro added. "I told him what happened was just a misunderstanding and that you'd be fired." Her eyes widened. "But I'm not." "No." She felt a mix of relief and tension. "What's the plan?" Montenegro approached the desk. "We want you to return to work tonight, as if nothing happened." "Why?" "To make Roberto panic," Enrique added. "Insecure people make mistakes when they feel exposed." Clara fell silent. "This is dangerous." "Yes," Montenegro replied without hesitation. She thought of her mother, the bills. "If I refuse..." Montenegro tilted his head. "You'll get 3 months' pay and an impeccable recommendation letter. You can look for another job. Roberto will continue until we find another way to expose him." Silence settled in the office. Clara felt something strengthen inside her. "If I do it, I need guarantees." Enrique raised his eyebrows. "What kind?" "That my mother will be safe. That nothing gets close to her. And that when it's all over, the truth comes out. I don't want secret deals." Montenegro studied her for several long seconds. "Accepted." He extended his hand. Clara hesitated only a moment before shaking it. His grip was firm but not crushing. "So," Montenegro said, "begins the fall of Alva Bustos." That evening, Clara entered Bellagio Prime with the same tray in her hands. The other waiters looked at her in surprise. "You're back," whispered a colleague. "I'm back." Roberto came out of the kitchen with an order tablet in hand. Seeing her, he paled. "What are you doing here?" Clara kept her posture straight. "Mister." Montenegro said it was a misunderstanding. His jaw tensed. "We need to talk." "Maybe we talk here," she replied calmly. He swallowed. From the other side of the hall, Montenegro watched from table 3. The pieces were moving, and the game was just beginning. The hall was full that Friday evening. Chandeliers shone, piano played softly, politicians smiled, businessmen raised glasses to deals. Everything seemed normal, but tension simmered beneath the surface. Clara felt Roberto's gaze on her every move. He didn't yell, didn't touch her, but watched like someone who knows something's out of control. In the corner of the hall, Montenegro conversed with 2 men pretending to be clients. They weren't. Clara recognized the attentive look, the alert posture. Security. In the small electronic earpiece behind her ear, Enrique's quiet voice sounded. "He's here. 3 calls since you arrived, all to the same number." Clara kept smiling as she served a glass of wine. Understood. At 2037, Roberto led Marcos, the senior warehouseman, to the wine cellar area. "Camera in the cellar active," murmured Enrique. Clara slowly passed by the kitchen door, pretending to get a water pitcher. On the screen in the office, Montenegro watched the live feed. "He's nervous," he noted. In the cellar, Roberto spoke quietly, but the recording was clear. "She's back. He knows something." "Then destroy the records," Marcos replied. "I can't erase everything now, it would raise suspicions. Bustos wants results by Monday. Either you deliver something against Montenegro or he'll cut you off." Montenegro remained motionless before the screen. "Do we have enough?" he asked. "Not yet," Enrique said. "We need him to mention the money." In the hall, Clara felt a chill. She returned to the tables, but Roberto intercepted her in the corridor. "You think you've won?" he hissed. She didn't back down. "I'm not playing anything." "Oh, you are. You don't know who." "I know enough." He got too close. "If you open your mouth to anyone, your life will turn into hell." Clara held his gaze. "It already did once. I survived." Roberto stepped back, surprised. At 21:12, his phone vibrated. He went out to answer on the side parking lot. Exterior camera active, warned Enrique. On the monitor, Roberto spoke on speaker. I need more time. The voice on the other end was cold. You had 8 months. Montenegro suspects something. Then hand over the material you have. Monday, the report goes to City Hall. Suspension comes Wednesday. After that, the building goes to auction. Montenegro tilted his head slightly. He'll deliver something fake, he murmured. Yes, confirmed Enrique. And we'll swap it before. Clara didn't know the full plan but felt something grand was about to explode. At 22:05, Roberto returned to the hall, pale. He headed straight to the administrative office. His accessing the server, Enrique said. Victor, the tech specialist, was already typing quickly. He's copying files to a USB. Montenegro said calmly, let him. Enrique looked at him. Let him. Yes, but replace with the prepared package. Victor executed the command in seconds. The real files were redirected, and what Roberto now copied was a carefully prepared set. Clean transactions, legal contracts, nothing to compromise Montenegro. Roberto left the office 10 minutes later, USB in pocket. At 23:20, the shift ended. Clara was removing her apron when Enrique appeared at the locker room door. Mr. Montenegro wants to see you. She went up to the top floor again. The office was lit only by screens. Tomorrow, Montenegro said without preamble, Roberto will meet Bustos at the Solara building. And the press will be there. Clara frowned. Press. Enrique explained. We sent an anonymous package. Recordings from the cellar, the parking lot, and embezzlement reports. Investigative journalists have been following Bustos for months. They needed a spark. Clara felt her heart race faster. So you're going to bring it all to light? Yes, confirmed Montenegro. She took a deep breath. Roberto chose his side. On Saturday at 18:45, 3 camera crews were discreetly positioned near the Solara building. Inside a black car parked 100 meters away, Clara watched the monitor. You didn't have to come, Enrique said. I need to see it. At 19:03, Roberto entered the building. At 19:07, Bustos appeared in the lobby. The meeting was short. USB handed over, envelope with money passed hands. Wait, said Montenegro. On the building's internal monitor, Bustos plugged the USB into his laptop. His face changed slowly. This is garbage, he muttered. Roberto paled. It can't be. You brought me invoices and payrolls. Before the argument could escalate, the office door burst open. Mr. Bustos, can you comment on the fraud and sabotage accusations? Cameras swarmed in. Roberto froze. Bustos tried to close the laptop, but flashes already lit the room. We have recordings where you finance fund embezzlements at Bellagio Prime, the journalist continued. Roberto tried to flee. Outside, police waited. Enrique smiled faintly. Synchronized with the complaint filed this morning. Clara watched it all with trembling hands. Is this really happening? In the lobby, Bustos shouted it was a setup, but the broadcast was already live. In minutes, the news exploded on social media. Investor caught in corporate sabotage scheme. Manager involved in $1 million embezzlements arrested red-handed. Roberto was handcuffed on the spot. He searched for someone with his gaze and, for a second, through the glass door, saw Clara in the car. His look was no longer arrogant, it was empty. The car pulled away slowly. Clara exhaled the air she'd seemed to hold for months. Is it over? She asked. Montenegro, watching the police car lights reflect on the buildings. No. Now the restoration begins. She looked at him. And me. He met her gaze calmly. You chose not to be an accomplice. That changes everything. The city continued its usual motion, but that evening, 2 men who thought they controlled the rules discovered that truth, when it emerges, can be more destructive than any threat. Clara leaned her head back on the seat. For the first time since her mother's stroke, she felt something different from fear. She felt strength. And Bellagio Prime would never be the same, nor would she. On Sunday morning, Alva Bustos' name was on all news portals. Entrepreneur arrested for attempted sabotage and corporate fraud. $1 million scheme involving elite restaurant uncovered. Employee could be key figure in group's downfall. Clara turned off her phone. She didn't want to see her blurred face in reports or read strangers' comments. Not in her real life. In the living room, her mother silently watched TV. When Clara approached, she squeezed her hand with unexpected strength. Her eyes said it all. Pride. At 10 in the morning, Enrique picked her up. Bellagio Prime was surrounded by onlookers and journalists, but unlike last week, the atmosphere wasn't suspicious, it was supportive. Former employees waited inside. When Clara entered, applause erupted. She almost stepped back. She didn't like being the center of attention. Montenegro descended the mezzanine stairs with the same proud posture as always. "We need to talk," he said in a calm tone. In the office, the city looked different. The view from above seemed clearer, more open. "Bustos has been formally charged," Enrique reported. "Conspiracy, tax fraud, active corruption." The prosecutor's office accepted the recordings as evidence. "And Roberto?" Clara asked. "Plea deal," Montenegro replied. "Calculated sentence in exchange for full testimony." She nodded slowly. She felt no resentment, she felt closure. Montenegro approached the desk and placed an envelope before her. "What's this?" "An offer." Clara opened the contract. Operations Director, Profit Sharing, Ethical Restructuring Plan. She looked up. "Is this serious?" "Absolutely." Enrique added. "You know the restaurant floor better than any manager. You know where the system failed." Clara took a deep breath. "I'm just a waitress." Montenegro stepped closer. "You're the person who chose honesty when it was easier to stay silent. That's leadership." "Silence." "If I accept," she said, "I don't want showness. I want real changes." "There will be," Montenegro replied without hesitation. That week, Bellagio Prime closed for 3 days. Full audit, contract reviews, mandatory trainings, new financial transparency policy. Clara oversaw everything with an attentive gaze. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also something new. Belonging. The following Friday, the restaurant reopened. Lines at the door, curious clients, discreet reporters. Montenegro gave a brief statement. "Bellagio Prime will continue to exist not because it's perfect, but because we decided to fix what was wrong." Clara stood beside him, not behind. Beside. During service, one client beckoned Clara. "Are you the employee who exposed the scheme?" She hesitated. "I was just doing my job." The man smiled. "And it's worth being proud of." That evening, closing the register, Clara found a note under the tray. "Honesty is rare. Don't lose it." And she smiled. Later, in the office, Montenegro watched the hall through the glass, now transparent, without hidden mirrors. "Before, I watched from here, staying invisible," he said. "And now?" Clara asked. "Now I prefer to be in view." She understood. Strength lay not in invisible control, but in taking responsibility. Weeks passed. Her mother's physiotherapy expanded thanks to the new salary. Clara resumed studies in the evening program. Bellagio Prime became a model of ethical practices in the industry. Entrepreneurs reached out to Montenegro, wanting to know the secret. He always replied, "Start by listening to those who work on the floor." One evening after closing, Clara stayed alone in the hall. Chandeliers off, table set, cozy silence. She walked to the former wine room, remembered the hand squeezing her wrist, the fear, doubts, and realized how much she'd grown. Montenegro appeared behind her. "Thinking about the past? About how it could have turned out differently if you'd stayed silent?" She nodded. He crossed his arms. "Empires fall for 2 reasons: arrogance or accumulated small lies. You prevented the second." She looked him in the eyes. "And you let the truth come out." A faint smile appeared on his face. "Perhaps I needed to learn something too." Enrique's phone rang upstairs. Montenegro looked at Clara. "The work never ends." "And thank God," she replied. Beyond the doors, the city continued. Cars, lights, deals being made. But inside Bellagio Prime, something had changed forever. It was no longer just a luxurious restaurant, it was proof that personal courage can change entire structures. Clara turned off the last light before leaving. She glanced at the empty hall. She no longer saw fear there, she saw creation. And she knew that from now on, she would always choose the same side. The side of truth.